Welcome to the Calm Analytics channel. Boris Teisenghausen is here with you. It's August 3rd. Here are the main news stories at this moment. Now I'm going to show you an absolutely epic video of how Russians tried to deliver gasoline to their soldiers in Crimea and how it all ended. In general, delivering fuel for Russian troops has turned into a very tough survival quest. Remember the movie Mad Max Fury Road? In that film, combat vehicles escorted a fuel convoy because gasoline was one of the most valuable resources. That's exactly how it is now, or maybe even tougher, as columns of Russian fuel trucks race at high speed, escorted by mobile fire teams, to deliver fuel to the occupiers. But an insurmountable obstacle appears in the path of the fuel convoy: Ukrainian drones, so occupied territory. Mad Max, the Russian version, present day.
Повітряна тривога, лети до Таганрога, дістань до Волгограда, Саратов потруси, нехай гримить в Тамбові, Рязані та Ростові, як до Москви дістанешся, то нахуй рознеси. Дехто каже, що це гріх і так не треба, гнів та розпач можуть карму зіпсувать. Бачу сльози, чути стогін аж до неба. За це все к***и мають поздихать. Повітряна тривога, лети до Таганрога, влупи як слід Вороніж і Курськом закоси. Єлабугу поштрикай, Новгород великий, як до Москви дістанешся, то нахуй рознеси. Повітряна тривога, лети до Таганрога, дістань до Волгограда, Саратов потруси, нехай гримить в Тамбові, Рязані та Ростові, як до Москви дістанешся, то нахуй рознеси. Дехто каже, що це гріх і так не треба, гнів та розпач можуть карму зіпсувать. Бачу сльози, чути стогін аж до неба. За це все к***и мають поздихать. Повітряна тривога, лети до Таганрога, влупи як слід Вороніж і Курськом закоси. Єлабугу поштрикай, Новгород великий, як до Москви дістанешся, то нахуй рознеси.
It seems to me that, to complete the picture, this fuel convoy was only missing that crazy guitarist from the original film. Remember him? What really strikes me is just how worthless human life is in the Russian Federation. To die so ingloriously near some completely unfamiliar village in Ukraine just so your family can get a bit of money or a pack of dumplings and a greeting card. You know full well that you came to someone else's land. You know full well that here you'll just be torn apart to atoms. And maybe they're listening to Putin, who keeps hissing at them from the podium, "Be braver, braver, you need to be even braver." You know what happened to the fuel trucks, Putin? They burned up. Now the old man will get another shot of Botox, crawl out of his bunker, and tell everyone that everything is going according to plan. But there is one indicator that can't be hidden, and that's the death toll of the Russian occupiers. So, according to the General Staff, the total losses of the Russian army in July amounted to, attention, 42,860 people. This is simply a record figure since the beginning of the year. In just 1 month, nearly 43,000 killed and wounded. That is simply a gigantic number. This means that the price of every kilometer of Ukrainian land for the Russian army is getting higher and higher. At the same time, over the past 30 days, the Russians managed to occupy just a little more than 30 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory. In other words, losses have reached a record level, while territorial gains remain minimal. If you compare the losses to the rate of advance, it turns out that each square kilometer of Ukrainian land in July cost the Russian army 1,429 occupiers killed and wounded. Just think about it. 1,429 Russians were lost for just 1 square kilometer of scorched Ukrainian land. And this is despite the fact that Russia, let me remind you, is the largest country on the planet, with an area of 17 million square kilometers. 2/3 of the territory of the Russian Federation is still uninhabited. You know, it seems to me, judging by these numbers, that Putin actually hates Russians even more than Ukrainians, since they're being destroyed at such a rate and at such a cost. Well, and if someone says that the war isn't about territory, let me just remind you of the main demand right now. Give up the entire Donbass. That's the main demand. There's no more talk of denazification, no more demilitarization. He just wants a piece of land. If he wanted, just think about it. If he really wanted to save the people of Donbass, as he keeps saying, we are forced to save them, it's not us. We were attacked, we have to save the people of Donbass. If he really wanted to save them, he would have taken them to Russia, built them beautiful, comfortable cities there, but instead, he killed them too. Look at the cities that Russia supposedly liberated. They've turned into piles of charred bricks and concrete. When someone is rescued from a dangerous place, like he claimed he was going to save the people of Donbass, they are taken away to a safe place. Isn't that right? Have you ever seen rescuers arrive somewhere to save people? From a fire or a flood, for example, and instead of taking people away, they start bombing them? Have you ever seen anything like that anywhere? That's how they rescue people. So what kind of rescue are we even talking about? By the way, friends, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. This is important for promoting the channel. You can do it right now. We are fighting against Putin's propaganda, and together we'll be much more effective at it. So make sure to subscribe. Meanwhile, in Russia, the 11th Wildberries logistics hub is already burning down. This time, it's in the Vladimir region. We're talking about the Wildberries Vladimir Varshinskaya logistics hub, which is located near the village of Kryastovo. This isn't just some ordinary pickup point, it's a full-fledged distribution center, brand new, enormous, actually one of the largest Wildberries had. It served, among others, Moscow, the Central Federal District, and the north of the European part of the Russian Federation. Let's take a look at how this warehouse is burning down. The area is 172,000 square meters with about 500,000 orders per day at peak load. And once again, videos are pouring in from poor, innocent Russians, from sellers who are saying, "Help, everything is lost. How did this happen that the war has come? How could this have happened? But you know what? Let's do this instead. Let's prove right now that every seller whose goods burn in this warehouse is making their own contribution to the continuation of this war." I switched on my level 80 nitpicker mode and found out the amount of taxes that Wildberries and the sellers who sell specifically through this warehouse pay. According to a model estimate using the proportional method, we get about 50 million in tax revenues to budgets at various levels. That's per day. Specifically from the flow of goods passing through this center, plus the taxes paid by the sellers. At the same time, the main bulk of tax revenues, about 2/3, are actually paid by the sellers, who, let me remind you, think they haven't done anything wrong. And in general, the war is something very far away for them. So per year, that's 18 billion rubles in taxes, which is about $230 million. Just this hub alone, $230 million. If you add related industries and logistics to this, you can easily multiply that figure by 1.5 or even 2. So $230 million is roughly equivalent to 100 ballistic missiles that will be launched at Ukraine. So just because of this one burnt down warehouse, which will burn down completely in the Vladimir region, the Russian budget will lose out on tax revenues equivalent to the cost of producing 100 ballistic missiles. And that paints a completely different picture, doesn't it? In short, everyone who pays taxes to the budget of the Russian Federation, whether they want to or not, is in one way or another participating in this war. And now, here's a piece of news I just couldn't ignore, simply because, of course, I already knew that the Russian Foreign Ministry was rock bottom, but with this statement, they've outdone themselves. It turns out that the explosion in the Moscow restaurant, where the war criminal and at the same time Commander-in-Chief of the Russian Aerospace Forces, General Chaiko, was celebrating his anniversary, do you know what goal it was supposed to serve according to the Russian Foreign Ministry? Let me quote it for you now. The explosion in the Moscow restaurant was an attempt to intimidate Italians. This is not a joke, this is an official statement. This is how the Russian Foreign Ministry commented on the explosion in the Moscow restaurant. Let's hear the quote. Only thanks to the vigilance and selfless dedication to duty of an employee of the Russian security service were the chef from Naples and members of his team unharmed. It is clear that by planning a terrorist attack in one of the best Italian restaurants in Moscow, the Kiev terrorists wanted to intimidate Italians working in Russia, to show them that they too are in the crosshairs and could at any moment become the next victims of these scoundrels, stated the embassy of the Russian Federation in Italy. This is not a joke. So it turns out the target was not the commander-in-chief of the aerospace forces, who, let me remind you, is responsible for missile and drone strikes on Ukraine, nor the high-ranking FSB and defense ministry officials who were at his birthday celebration, but rather the Italian chef whom they supposedly wanted to intimidate. What a moment the perpetrators chose, right? They waited until this Italian restaurant was filled with highly protected individuals, FSB generals, FSO officers, representatives of the defense ministry, and decided that at that very moment, when there would be a ton of security present, was the time to try to scare the Italian chef. What an idea. Not on another day when there would be far less security, but specifically on this one. But you really had to come up with a story like that. I think Zakharova and Medvedev must have crushed more than one bottle of Finlandia before arriving at this conclusion. By the way, General Chaiko, the commander-in-chief of the aerospace forces, still hasn't made contact. Come in, General. Is everything all right over there? We hope not. Meanwhile, Ukraine is performing an incredible feat. In every episode, we have an important fundraiser for the defense forces of Ukraine. We are continuing to raise funds for a pickup truck for the soldiers of the 31st Separate Mechanized Brigade. They are modest, quiet, but they do their job excellently. They strike at the occupiers so hard, it makes the woods shake. We have just a little bit left to raise for this fundraiser. Let's help our warriors. The link to the fundraiser is in the description of this video. There are options for Mono, Private, and PayPal for those who want to help from abroad. And there's a QR code in the corner for those watching me on another channel. Your donation is important to our fighters right now, so let's help them. And from me, a special thank you to everyone who helps. Thank you so much. By the way, in Belgorod, they also destroyed a university where drones were being developed and tested. There was an uproar on those swampy wastelands as well. Last night, a massive fire broke out at the Belgorod State Technological University. At the university itself, they were developing and testing drones, and they also provided training in drone design. Over the past year, the Shuko Belgorod State Technological University has become one of the regional engineering hubs where drone control systems were developed, tests were conducted, and specialists were trained. They won't be developing anything there anymore. Let's watch the video.
Там все горит. Прям все. Вон, видишь, даже лестничный пролет видно. Сука, там, где беспилотные аппараты делают и учат, как ими управлять. Ему просто весь взорвали.
Oh my, what is that lady saying in the background? Is she saying they were developing drones there? Oh, she gave everything away. The thing is, we have no idea why the university building caught fire at all, and it happened at night. Who knows what kind of drones you were developing there and what could have exploded inside? Well, it was precisely the building where the relevant facilities and equipment were located that caught fire. I think now the Russians will rush to complain to the UN, saying that at night it turns out, well, they'll come up with something like there was some special student shift that at night they were knitting socks and mittens and so on. And now those poor students are running around in the smoke, can't find the exit, and can't find their little hands either. You know, I always wait for Alabuga to fall into hell, where the Russian Shaheads are assembled. Everyone understands perfectly well what they're assembling there and for what purpose. That these drones will fly off to kill Ukrainians. So I'm waiting for karma to catch up with this Alabuga. I think all of us will live to see it happen. One more piece of news. In Krasnoyarsk, ahead of Putin's visit, gas station prices suddenly dropped sharply. Well, this is a classic move. So, along the route where Putin, or maybe his double, was traveling, they put up last year's prices at the gas stations along the road. A similar situation, I'll remind you, happened in Irkutsk, when the locals there were shocked. How is that possible? What's going on? Why are there last year's low prices at some gas stations but not at others? Well, basically, these Potemkin gas stations were set up just for Putin. Let's suppose for a moment that Putin is really being given a distorted picture where he's about to capture Donbass and there's no fuel crisis. The Russian economy is more stable than ever, where sanctions are actually beneficial, as Grandpa Kablukan likes to say. In other words, they're creating an alternative reality for him, where everything is wonderful, prices are low, and there's gasoline everywhere. But then the question arises, if everything is so great in this reality, why hold a parade in a back alley in St. Petersburg, huh? If everything is so great, why can't they just tell him in this alternative reality that Donbass has already been captured, that Russia has taken over half the world, but for now you just can't go there, that he's won and that's it, and let that bald jellyfish live in his made-up world? And do you know why they can't? Because all the leadership there is completely nuts, every single one of them. They want to fight. Their entire power is built on war. If the war ends, they're finished. Putin himself says, so what are we going to do? These belligerent seniles have suddenly decided, in their old age, to drag as many people as possible with them to the grave. But Putin came to Krasnoyarsk for some kind of competition. The big break. I came across some clips from this competition, something there for the kids. Well, yeah, after all, he killed their fathers and brothers. Apparently, they're preparing the same fate for them too. And he was greeted there in true North Korean style. I'll find that video and try to include it in tomorrow's episode. Basically, just so you understand, the entire hall was full of children. All the kids are jumping and chanting, Putin, Putin! Just like in North Korea, you know, when the children jump, shake their little hands and squeal. And here it was exactly the same. This is not a joke. I mean, they're seriously copying the way Kim Jong-un is greeted in North Korea. Putin thinks that the children really are that happy to see him. Meanwhile, Wildberries has banned employees from bringing phones into the warehouses so they can't film the aftermath of drone attacks. In other words, warehouse staff are now only allowed to carry basic button phones with them. And there's a reason I included this news in the episode, because Wildberries is in essence a mini model of Russia. Make a quick buck, but if anything happens, the responsibility falls on you, Russians. The cost of the war, the burned goods, all of that is on the sellers. Ban employees from filming and pretend that everything is fine. But it's the same thing. The boss goes on TV, waves his hands around and says, we ourselves can't even afford black caviar. We all need to hold on a bit longer, tighten our belts. So this really is Russia in miniature? By the way, it's not just Wildberries. Ozon is also preparing for strikes on its hubs. The second largest marketplace by sales, Ozon, has started moving expensive goods from warehouses to order pickup points. Those sly ones decided to trick the Magyar. Everything that fills the Russian military budget will go up in flames. I think that's an axiom. And one more piece of news. Managers, accountants, and HR specialists in Russian companies have started preparing their employees for mobilization. I mean, it's already clear to everyone. Last month, specialized publications released a whole series of articles describing how military registration should be conducted in companies and institutions if mobilization suddenly occurs. And after all, it hasn't stopped in Russia. That is, if they start tightening the screws. Moreover, several such articles came out at once on how to properly keep mobilization records. In these articles, both HR specialists and accountants are informed about how to respond to summonses and mobilization orders for employees. Basically, and what's more, the Russian leadership every single day, there isn't a day that goes by without them announcing that there will be no mobilization. Don't worry, everything has already been published in specialized journals about how accountants and HR specialists should behave. Everyone is ready, they're recruiting new staff. 1,500 job openings related to mobilization have been posted on Headhunter. What more do you need, Russians? Run, as Gandalf said. Run, you fools. Here's another piece of news. Ukraine's long-range strikes on Russia could force the Kremlin to lower its demands and agree to negotiations. Do you know who said that? The head of the State Department, Marco Rubio. Oh, Medvedev Medinsky. The textbooks need to be urgently rewritten. Americans are the bad guys again now. I'll go further. Long-range strikes on the territory of the Russian Federation have not only opened up additional opportunities for Ukraine, but have also opened the eyes of the rest of the world to the fact that a gas station country can be left without gasoline in just a matter of weeks. And in general, with active support for Ukraine, they can be left not only without gasoline, but also without factories, without warehouses, without refineries, and without ports. In short, leave them with nothing, begging on the street, bring them back to their roots, as they say. And once again, I repeat that right now our European partners have a unique opportunity, truly unique, to dismantle their main threat with someone else's hands, to destroy the enemy with someone else's hands, the enemy who, with a high degree of probability, will come to fight them in a few years. There might not be another chance like this. And as for you, friends, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, subscribe to the channel, and let's help our warriors from the 31st Brigade. The link to donate is in the description of this video. Have a peaceful day, everyone, and glory to Ukraine!